Radio here on Friday. Friday means Sam Bradshaw, S11, SicEm365.com with us. And Sam, this game this week rightfully is giving, I'm sure, a lot of Baylor fans pause because this is not only a tough place to play, this looks like an Iowa State team that is pretty darn good. They've got Xavier Hutchinson. They've got a quarterback that seems kind of fun. There's not a lot of things to make you think that this is just going to go easy in Ames on Saturday.
Thanks for having me on. And yeah, this Iowa State team's pretty solid. And Ames is usually a pretty good home field advantage for them. And it's going to be a challenge for a young Bear team to go out and get a victory. Xavier Hutchinson's one of the best receivers in the conference, and they've got some other good offensive weapons around. Hunter Decker's the new quarterback who gives you a little bit of running ability, but he also gives you a little stronger arm than Brock Purdy. And then on the other side of the ball, you lost some star power up front with Awazarike and Mike Rose and a couple other key guys. But, you know, it's still the same Iowa State three-man front, drop eight dime coverages that you've seen for the last half a decade. And they're always reliable. They're always in position. They're always physical. And you're going to have to go beat them. They're going to make you execute up and down the field. And we'll see how well that Baylor offense can do it.
I thought there was a really interesting quote in your column from Tom Manning about their offense and what Matt Campbell does, about how he has things he likes to do, but he doesn't have what you'd call an overall philosophy.
Right. They're looking at the players they have, and then from there, they're looking at formations to get those players into positive positions. And then based off the results of those two, then they get into what kind of plays they're going to run. You know, Campbell and his offensive coordinator are both old Mount Union guys, and that's the Purple Division III team that if you grew up in the 90s and 2000s, you saw in December on ESPN winning national title after national title after national title at the Division III level. Very strong program culture there that Campbell's been able to import into Ames. And he did it at Toledo before he even got to Ames. Actually beat Iowa State the year before Iowa State hired him. You know, just very strong program culture, very strong sense of identity in terms of what they're trying to do on both sides of the ball. But offensively, I'm really interested to see what they have because Iowa really shut that offense down for the vast majority of the game. And other than Iowa, they really haven't played a defense. You know, it's early in the season, and you can usually blow these kind of holes in anybody's schedule. But with so many guys turned over from the prior year, it's going to be really interesting to see because you no longer have Charlie Kolar and Chase Allen at tight end. That duo really gave you some flexibility because they were both such good receiving tight ends, but they could also be viable blockers. You don't have Breece Hall, who's, you know, it's a tall order to come in right after David Montgomery and still be probably the best NFL prospect your program has had. And he did it. You know, you've got three absolute game changers on the offensive side of the ball schematically that are missing. And while Jarrell Brock and Easton Dean and Jared Russ are solid players, they're not going to force the matchups to the same degree that those guys did. And just another article I did this week just on kind of their depth chart and how experienced and athletic they are. They lost a ton coming out of last year. And to their credit, they've been able to hit the transfer portal. They've been able to develop some guys and grow them themselves over the last couple of years. So they're still going to be a very solid team, but it's going to be a lot of different faces. And they lost a lot of difference makers. I mean, last year, those two tight ends and Breece Hall, just the number of times Baylor lost those guys in coverage, just flat out didn't cover those three, were just staggering. Allen had a couple times right up the sideline for big yardage. On the last drive, you had that 3rd and 8 where Brock Purdy looked to be sacked, but nobody was covering Breece Hall, and he almost gets the first down on that play. And then the final touchdown before the 2-point conversion that Baylor stopped, nobody even covered Breece Hall. You know, it was just very sloppy in that aspect of the game, and it made a game where you had two special teams touchdowns turn the game for you. It turned that into a nail-biter.
Oh, yeah, and a nail biter it was. If not for a bad snap at the end of the game, we don't know what would have happened there, at McLean Stadium last year. Now, Sam, I would say offensively for Iowa State, the one matchup nightmare they have for everybody, especially with the Baylor team with a secondary that's pretty green still, is Xavier Hutchinson. He is fantastic. He is not someone you'd want to roll out there and go one-on-one in coverage with. What have you seen from him?
He's an outstanding receiver. He's got the ability to win at the point of the catch. He's got the ability to get deep on you. He's probably not the fastest guy you're going to see all year, but he's definitely got legitimate speed. He's definitely not slow by any means. He's going to be, if he's not the best receiver you're going to see all year, it doesn't take long to call a roll to get to him. But, I'm really curious to see how Baylor stops the run and how well they can pressure Hunter Deckers with their front four and with their kind of conservative aggression packages where you're simulating bringing a lot of guys, but you end up bringing four, or you bring one guy from depth to go with your front three, where you're not necessarily overloading the protection, but you're stressing it, and you're able to get those pressures, but you're able to still play base coverages behind it. If you can stop the run and if you can pressure the quarterback doing that against Deckers, the times that I saw Ohio get to him, he looked like a guy that's going to look perfect if you let him sit back there. But the moment you kind of get in his face, the mechanics break down a little bit. He starts sailing it. And I think with Baylor's pressure packages that they've largely kept off of film so far and are both Aranda and Roberts' calling card, you've got to expect they're going to break a lot of those out this week. And that should pay some pretty good dividends as long as they can hold up in the run. I mean, last year, Breece Hall had about 3 really long runs. But other than that, they were able to keep Iowa State mostly under wraps, which is why Iowa State had to lean on the passing game to get the consistent yards that they were getting. But I'm really interested to see the playbook open on both sides of the ball. I think this is a game where the decision to switch quarterbacks in the offseason could pay really big dividends because Baylor got off to a quick start last year, but Iowa State absolutely camped out on what they were doing with Gary Bohannon in the second half, held him under 15 yards per drive in the second half. And you obviously can't have that be the case for a full game or else you're not going to have much of a chance to win. And I think Chapin's ability to handle the shorter passing game and their ability to scheme guys open underneath that conservative Iowa State coverage, I think that will pay a lot of dividends. And this is a game that if Bohannon was here, I'd probably be predicting Iowa State comfortably.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that opening up the offense. A lot of that can come with Monterey Baldwin. Looks like he's going to be back, which is huge. Not sure on some of the other guys, but also Richard Reese and Squirrel Williams at running back, who we saw pretty much exclusively last week. How do you think they open up and match up against an Iowa State defense, like you said, is very consistent pretty much all the time?
Right. Iowa State's usually pretty reliable against the run, so they're going to have to do some things schematically to keep those extra safeties and overhang linebackers from flying in late to stuff the run with extra guys after their front four, meaning the down three and their interior linebacker. Their entire scheme is based around those guys filling guys outside so that their zone cover guys can run people down. They want to make you execute over and over and over again because they know they can develop linemen in that part of the country. I mean, any successful program you've seen over the last several decades from Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Kansas, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Minnesota, all of them have been able to grow linemen. But what they haven't really been able to develop a whole lot of are individual single cover guys. So by relying on those front defensive linemen and linebackers to stop the run, they're able to get more speed on the field to handle the coverages you see in the Big 12. And then from there, you can really force teams to execute and weaponize your own discipline. But where I think where the rubber hits the road for this offense is passing game has to execute. They're going to face a lot more and varied coverages than they've seen before. They're not going to face a ton of man coverage, which will be different than some of the coverages that they've seen. So some of these guys may end up performing a lot better against Iowa State than they would against somebody else who gets in their face a little more in terms of their route. it's something where you're not necessarily trying to stretch all areas of the field. You're trying to just take what's there. But Iowa State does a great job of mixing up their coverages, playing trap coverages, doing everything they can to disguise their intentions until the last minute.
So could this be a game where Baylor's one of their weaknesses, obviously, in the season has been guys not taking a top off the defense, where that may not have to show very much because it's about yards after the catch underneath?
Yeah, I think against Iowa State, you'll certainly scheme up a shot play or two based off which zone coverages you expect to see, and you'll run one or two guys at certain points of that zone coverage to try and stress it to get somebody open in another portion of the field. But, yeah, a lot of what you're going to have to do is they're going to take away the deep stuff just philosophically. And you're going to have to check down. You're going to have to hit accurately in the intermediate. You're going to have to take care of the ball, scramble when necessary. And I think those are things that when we've seen Chapin at his best, that's what he's doing. He's taking accurate throws. He's getting the ball out on time. Or if nothing's there, he's scrambling for decent amounts of yards. This is a kind of game plan that I think would play to a guy like Chapin's strength.
Do you think that defensively they will be able to start creating some turnovers, something for the last 2 seasons, or 3 seasons, really, they've been pretty darn good at? I guess 3 out of the 4 seasons, but they've been good at, but this year so far hasn't really happened that much.
I think they will, and I think you'll see a lot more of that as they open up the playbook a little more. You know, on both sides of the ball, you want to keep that playbook closed as long as you can, assuming you have the talent to just go out and win. Because what you're dealing with a lot of coaches who know you very well. They see you every year. They break down your film every year. Even when they're not playing you, you're playing a round robin, so they see you on film even when they're not playing you. You know, you don't want them to know on the offensive side of the ball, all right, your RPO and your pass concepts, at what depth are guys making their breaks? What kind of reads are the quarterbacks looking at specifically that we can drill in over the course of the week so we can muddy up his read? That's the kind of stuff they've kept off the film on the offensive side. And then on the defensive side, what kind of pressures do you like to bring? And based off of those, how can we coach our protection guys to give our quarterback a little extra time? Or how can we coach our quarterback and receivers to hit hot routes and things like that against those particular looks? I mean, in general, offenses do this in general, but to really tailor it to what you're doing. I remember when Charlie Brewer's kind of last home win at Baylor against Kansas State. I remember Kansas State's boundary safety had Baylor scouted pretty well. They kept trying to hit this RPO to the boundary, but that kid had had enough time in the film room with it. He jumped up and kept batting the pass down, so kept giving Charlie the throw read, then just jumping up and batting the pass down right as he's trying to get the ball out. It was very good execution on film study, and I understand why they're trying to keep other teams from being able to do that this early in the season.
Well, Sam, thank you very much. As always, great stuff. S11 on SicEm365.com. He's got columns up right now. Please go read them. And if you're not subscribed to SicEm365.com, you can do that easily. Got a great promotion running now. If you just go and click on the link that we have about KDBTX, it's great. Year-long subscription for $15. Can't beat it. Sam, have a great weekend. And we'll talk to you next week about whatever happens up in Ames, Iowa on Saturday.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
That's Sam Bradshaw, SicEm365.com. This is 365 Sports.